This is it, people. This is what you've been waiting for. This is Everyday Celebrity Podcast. The podcast for everyday people with everyday problems, trying to find everyday solutions to accomplish everyday goals. Let's start the show. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Celebrity Podcast, the number one podcast in Oakland, number one podcast in the Bay Area. I'm your host, marvelous host, Jordan Owandi. Today is a special day. It's kind of like this is going to be a very personal episode, educational to all the people, because a lot of people don't really know about this type of stuff or this community, so I want to shed light. Because we just had Pride Month and everything. So what better way to celebrate Pride than to have one of the top activists of our generation.
I'm so humble.
Forrest, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And how was your day today?
It's pretty chill. It's like a really big nap. I'm feeling really good right now.
Yeah. Did you eat like an edible or something? No?
No, to be honest with you, I went to a play party like 2 weeks ago, and it fucked up my sleep schedule to this day. And now I'm just taking a lot of naps.
What's a play party?
A play party is a space where you have the opportunity to have sex with people. Not guaranteed, but it's like an orgy of sorts.
Wow. Okay, well, we can get into that later. So, tell the people what you go by, like your sex and all that stuff.
Yeah, how I identify?
Yeah.
I'm a man of trans experience, a queer man.
Mm-hmm.
Also identify as a spiritual slut.
Mm-hmm. Now you say spiritual slut. What exactly do you mean when you say
that? For me, sexuality is an extension of spirituality.
Mm.
And I think in mainstream culture, there's a common misconception that spirituality is at odds with sexuality. Mm-hmm. Especially if you look at mainstream porn and how violent it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I approach sexuality is in a tantric way. It's like deeply healing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, are you originally from the Bay Area?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. Born and raised?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I have mixed feelings about it.
Mm-hmm. How was life growing up there?
I didn't enjoy my childhood too much, I would say. Like, I had some good times, but not the best environment for a young queer trans person.
Mm-hmm.
My high school had like 2,000 people in it. It was pretty big. Mm-hmm. I didn't know a single queer person. Like, nobody was out. So, yeah.
What years were you in high school?
I graduated in 2011.
Okay. 2011. Okay, yeah, I can see. So you weren't like in the 90s and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So you saying that there was nobody, there was like no kids. So like, if you look at high school kids today, they're like, oh, they're out like freely and shit, right?
Yeah.
And fully accept. So it was different back then with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You see so many non-binary kids too now. Like I did not have language for that until I was 24. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh shit, I think that's me.
Yeah.
And then I moved out here. I was like, I got to get out of here. This doesn't feel right.
So when you were growing up, now I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that they might seem dumb questions, but I'm just asking, just pretend that I don't really know anything about this community, right?
Okay.
So I'm asking just on an educational purpose. So when you were growing up, you were obviously born female, correct?
I was assigned female at birth.
Mm-hmm. So when you were growing up in St. Louis, when did you know, or when did you know that you were like
trans?
Yeah.
I think I always knew. Like, it was always obvious to me, but I got a lot of negative feedback from my parents, from my environment, just from everybody. So I learned at a very young age to hide those pieces of myself. So I think at a subconscious level, like I knew it was true, and then I couldn't like bring it into my conscious awareness because it felt too scary. I didn't want to be alone forever. You know?
So when did you come out to your parents, or did you come out?
Yeah, when I was 24. Yeah, did not go well.
No?
No.
Do you have a relationship with your parents now? No?
No, my dad is pretty violent. He's a violent person. Trump supporter.
Yeah.
My mom's like a Trump supporter, but like, yeah, just that typical patriarchal dynamic, like the white woman supporting the white man in silence, and like, you know, it's like a different subtle form of violence. But yeah, my dad is like out of my life. I cut him out. But my mom, I'm hoping to rekindle with her. She had a hard time processing my gender, and it was really painful for me to like hold that space for her. And so I needed to take some space. It's been a couple of years now, but I sent her a letter in December. I was like, hey, maybe we could start communicating through letters, because it's just so painful to talk to her because she doesn't realize how transphobic she is. It just like comes out like in between the words, you know, like it's hard. So now that I'm feeling a little more secure in myself, I've been on testosterone for 2.5 years, presenting male. I'm just feeling so much more peace in my body. And now I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to reach back out, but I'm still waiting on her letter.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a little brother. He's 6, and an older sister. She's like 1.5 years older.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my little brother was like a whoopsie. So he's like my full brother.
Do you have a relationship with them?
It's a little complicated. My sister's a little unstable, I think is the best way to say it. So we've never really had a close relationship. I've tried, but it's hard. It's really hard to be close with her. She's pretty violent and unstable. And with my little brother, it's hard because I wish I could interact with him more, but you know, they all live in Missouri, and since I'm not talking to my parents right now, it's kind of hard to get to him. So that's something that weighs on me a lot. I think about him often.
So you graduated high school in 2011?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then I went to college, and like all of my gay friends, I have so many queer friends now. That's why I moved out here, you know? Like I moved here to be in community with queer and trans folks. And like all the queer folks I feel like I meet, they talk about their college experience, and it sounds so gay. And I'm like, damn, my college experience, I was like still closeted both ways, like queer and trans.
So when you were in college, you still weren't fully out yet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to college in St. Charles, Missouri. It's a small town. I didn't want to be there. It's what I could afford. It was accessible, but it was like, there's this weird dichotomy between like a huge population of international students and then a huge population of like hillbillies. They had, just the campus culture was so like camouflage, and like they had like a gun team that was like the best in the nation. Kind of not my vibe. But I did hang out with all the international students, and I spoke a lot of Spanish on campus. That was cool.
Were you like dating anyone in college?
Yes. My first lover, Andres, Chilean boy. We had this like really interesting long distance romance when I was in high school. So it's weird because I was used to being friend zoned all the time, like in high school and just like my whole life. And then I like fall in love with this Chilean boy, and it's like this completely unlikely romance. But then we did like a long distance relationship for 8 months in high school. And that's before Zoom was popular. So it's like truly, I'm shocked by it. I'm like, how do we do that? But we went to school together and we dated for 3 years.
Yeah, okay. But it was like secretly that you guys weren't out like going to restaurants and shit together, holding hands.
Oh no, we were like a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, when I came out as gay, I was 21, and I had just come back from a year abroad. I'd spent a year in Argentina, and I started dating this girl from Honduras that was at our school, and like casually ran into him in the parking lot, and he was so homophobic, and like his only words to me after a year of not seeing each other was like, "Is it true that you're dating?" And then when I said, yeah, he looked like he had this disgusted look on his face, and he took a step away from me.
So he was mad that you were dating a woman?
Yeah, I mean, it was just homophobia, you know. I think it was hurting his ego. But since that time, he's actually come to visit me in California. Of all times, when I was recovering from top surgery, I felt so vulnerable. But like he had reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town for like this business trip. Are you around? I want to connect." And it was such a beautiful interaction. He apologized for that homophobic response, and he was like, "I'm just so happy you're happy."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So your sexual preference is what? Like bisexual?
I identify as pansexual. I mean, it's so nuanced with all these words that we use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get confused like a motherfucker. So explain what is pansexual?
Pan just means like expansive. Like if you think of a panorama, like it's like a huge, wide array. So, I mean, some people like the word bisexual. It doesn't feel good to me because of like it implies there's like only two sexes or two genders, which isn't really accurate. Pansexual feels more expansive. Like I'm just attracted to humans. You know, it's more about the vibe than it is like the genitals.
Okay. So, I mean, were you dating women in high school?
No.
No.
I mean, I think I've always had a stronger emotional connection with women, and I've definitely had girl crushes in high school, but I like played them off. I was like, no, I can't. Bisexuality isn't real, so I like guys. I know I can't be gay. I was always like talking myself out of it.
Okay. Did you have someone in high school that you were able to talk to about shit like this?
Oof. No, not really. Yeah, I grew up in an abusive household, and I felt a lot of shame about that. Like, there's just so much violence in my house, and I felt like on so many levels.
Pull the mic closer to you.
Yeah. How's this?
Yeah. All right.
I felt like in high school, I was like just hiding everything about my life because I was thinking like, if someone finds out how fucked up my family is, like, no one will want to be friends with me. I'll like die alone. No one will want to marry me. These are my high school thoughts. So I was in no position to be telling people about my sexuality. I was too like repressed, you know?
Do you feel that's one of the reasons for a lot of teens who like commit suicide?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've definitely flirted with suicide. Yeah, especially I used to be an alcoholic when I was living in St. Louis. After I graduated school, I just felt so depressed, and it was like hard for me to make friends in St. Louis because all the cool queers would move away. Yeah, just there wasn't like the community I needed out there. So, yeah, I was drinking my problems away, but then it hit a point where like even the alcohol couldn't mask my transness, and I just had to like admit to myself like, bro, you're trans, you know? And when I admitted that to myself, I spent the whole day in my room like hyperventilating, crying. My eyes were puffy. And I was like, is it worth living? I'm not sure. Like, I actually was like contemplating that. I'm like, what do I do from here? I don't know if I want to do this. But here we are, you know?
So that was the point of time where you were like, okay, I need to start transitioning?
Yeah, I made a very conscious decision in that moment. Like, because it had always been there below the surface, but it was that point where I finally hit my breaking point where I was like miserable and I couldn't cope. And I was like, okay, I'm either gonna like take an empowered step forward and like own my reality, or I'm just gonna like live in hiding and like live under alcohol or cannabis or whatever the distraction was at the time. And I chose to move forward. I chose to move out here and like start a new life, basically.
So have you ever been to California before you moved here?
Yeah. My best friend from college was a film major, and she moved to LA. So I went and visited her in LA, and I was like, damn, I gotta move out here.
So you first moved to LA?
No, I wasn't really interested in moving to LA. I mean, there's a lot of cool things there too, but what brought me to Oakland is that intersection of like spirituality and activism. There's a huge community of that here. And I really wanted to like get rid of my car and just bike. And so I'm able to do that here. And in LA, I think it's harder.
Okay. So when you left, you graduated college. And then did you come out here as soon as you graduated? What was the time frame?
No. If my baby brother wasn't born, I would have moved way sooner. But yeah, it was so hard to leave that kid. I left when he was 3. So I think he was like 1 at my college graduation. Yeah.
Okay. So when you got to California, tell me, how was that? Were you like a kid in a candy store?
Oh man. Yeah, it was really exciting. I remember like I went to the farmer's market because that's my happy place. That's the thing that grounds me, like a weekend routine. So the first thing I did was like, where's the farmer's market? And just something so simple as going to a fucking farmer's market and just like seeing trans people, and it's like no big deal. Like a trans person selling me carrots, I like was tearing up. Just like, oh shit, I can like start a life for myself out here and just be normal, and it's like not going to be a big deal.
Okay. And that was like the main reason you wanted to move?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because I mean, the South, I say this over and over. I don't like the South. I would never live in the South because just the history of the South and the fact that they're so like behind in times, like,
yeah,
shit is crazy.
Yeah, Missouri is technically the Midwest. But I mean, if you're not in a city, like, I mean, rural culture is like rural culture.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about you transitioning. What so basically, what's like the first step in this process?
So it's different for everyone. I can share my experience. Like some people do things in different orders. What felt good to me was to start hormones. I wanted to do that like right away. So I was able to do that like 2 months after I moved here. And that felt like a huge relief. So relieving. Like even when I was still getting misgendered and people were like using she, her pronouns for me, just being on testosterone, like just, you know, being able to like, for me, I took it in lotion form. So just putting on that lotion every day, oh my God, it really just gave me like a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
And explain what hormones do. What do they do to you?
Yeah. I'm not as well versed in like the opposite end of the trans experience, but with testosterone, the first change that happens, which is the most exciting change, is bottom growth. So like I refer to my genitals, I call it my dick or my cock, but like technically it's a clitoris, you know? So like my clitoris grew. It's so fun. Sex is like so much more fun and delicious.
All right, wait a minute. So when you're taking hormones, you're saying that you're growing a penis?
Essentially, yeah. So the thing about human anatomy is that when you're in the womb, like it's all the same genitals. And then when you add testosterone, then you start developing a penis. And then the people who don't, like the people who have more estrogen in their body, it's like if you do nothing, you will develop a vagina, basically. So now that I'm adding testosterone, like I have the same materials that a penis would have. It's just a different size. It's like, it's cute and little, like the size of my pinky.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how so how long do you have to be on hormones? Like forever?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you want. I don't enjoy the logistics of taking hormones forever, but I don't menstruate now that I take testosterone, and it would send me into like a mental breakdown if I did start menstruating again. So I don't see myself getting off of testosterone.
And you still take the lotion form?
Yeah, it's like a gel form. It's very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you stop testosterone, like if I were to stop testosterone, like my voice would remain this level of deepness. My facial hair would remain like all my body hair basically, but my body fat would redistribute. So it would go back to like a more feminine figure. Yeah, I think that's it.
Where do you get these hormones from? You just go to a doctor, say, yo, I want to start transitioning, and they just give it to you?
Oh man. How did I do this? I went to Lion Martin. They're a health clinic in SF. They serve like women and trans folks. And they don't take, like, they're for like low income people. So that was super helpful for me. It was super easy for me to get on hormones. There was like a small process I had to go through. I can't remember if I got interviewed by a therapist for that, but in order to get top surgery, I did need to get interviewed by a therapist, and that process was excruciating. It took like 10 months from start to finish. Like,
yeah, wait. We'll get into top surgery in a bit, but let's stick to step by step. All right, so you had to go to a clinic in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So this is so basically you can't go to like a Kaiser.
I'm not actually sure about that. Okay, so here's the thing about trans health. Like, trans people have been around for millennia, and colonization has like oppressed us in our existence and tried to erase us. But so like medically speaking, in like the medical industry, like there's not a lot of research about trans folks. It's like a huge experiment almost. So it's hard to find good trans competent care. Like, you could go to a average Joe doctor and they could like take some guesses and like try to take care of you, but it's way better to go to like LGBTQ center or something that's like super specific and get like like a referral for someone who specializes in that stuff. Like, my doctor was a trans guy. It was such a fucking godsend, because even he was saying like, yeah, this was my experience. You might experience some of these symptoms, but like the medical books won't tell you that. Like, we're all just like word of mouth right now. What are the symptoms and stuff like that?
Okay. So after you got the hormones, what was the next step after taking hormones? Well, matter of fact, when you started taking hormones, how fast did you start seeing results?
It's a very slow process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you compare it to like puberty, it's like actually really quick. It's like a very fast puberty, but I mean, when you're like contemplating suicide, like I could barely leave the house sober because it was so painful to like be perceived as a woman in the world. So the time felt like excruciatingly slow, but I did a monthly voice comparison. So each month, like the first month, you don't notice anything except for a little bit of bottom growth. And you're like, oh my God, what the fuck is this? This is so cool. And you're like horny all the time, like any other puberty. But then the second month started noticing a deeper drop. But then by month 3, like, oh my God, it really picked up. Like, my voice was changing octaves in a big way from like month 3 to month 10. And then it kind of leveled out from there. I feel like I've been level for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, but the facial hair, like, man, that takes a long time. It's different for everyone, but it takes at least a year and a half, anywhere from like a year and a half to like 3 or 4 years to really like grow out your facial hair.
So, so after that, what was the next step in your your process?
I also changed my name legally.
Mm-hmm.
My birth name was pretty painful for me. It's like a very feminine name. Just like wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
So I originally chose Quinn as my name, but I outgrew that. So right now my legal name is Quinn, but I go by Forrest. I just don't want to go through that process. I'm not ready again yet. It's too much. I'm trying to settle in.
All right. So you got the hormones. You got the name change.
Yeah.
Is this when top surgery came in?
Yeah, so I started the process for top surgery in December, like the same time I did.
And did you always know that you were going to get top surgery?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like from day one.
Mm-hmm. And explain what top surgery is to the people who don't know.
Yeah, so it's essentially like a double mastectomy, where they remove your chest fat. That's how I'd like to say it in a way that feels good to me.
Mm.
So now I have a flat chest, and I have a pretty big scar that goes like from armpit to armpit across my chest.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you said you had to talk to a therapist before?
Yeah, there's all these legalities you have to, it's like a big bureaucratic process, and it does not feel good emotionally.
Now, why do they make you do that?
The straights are in power and they don't know what they're doing. You know how, like, do you like cannabis?
No, I don't smoke.
Oh, dang.
But you can tell me the analogy. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like if you go to a dispensary and you get like, I don't know, something so simple as like an eighth of weed or even just a joint, it has all this like super extra packaging that you don't need with all these like child safety locks and stuff. It almost makes it feel like, oh my God, what am I about to consume? When it's like not a big deal. Mm-hmm. And it's because I imagine the people who made those rules aren't actually consuming cannabis. They're probably just scared of it. So, yeah, like I was identifying as non-binary. I was using they, them pronouns, but I lied in my interview and I said, yeah, I'm a trans man. I use he, him pronouns because I was scared they weren't going to let me do it. You know, like you have to get approved by the man.
Did you have to get approved by that same clinic where you were getting the hormones? Or is this like a whole different hospital?
Yeah, the thing about Lime Martin is like they specialize in like trans care. So they have a beautiful process where it felt easy. Like they just held my hand through the whole thing and they said, we're going to set you up with a therapist in house. They're going to send this somewhere else. And then you got to wait for your insurance, blah, blah, blah.
So it's covered by your insurance?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God. Yeah. Because when I moved out here, I quit my job and started a whole new career as a life coach. Mm-hmm. But I was really struggling to find like temp work in the meanwhile as I was like honing in my craft. So I was like in some pretty extreme poverty. It was really stressful, and I'm really grateful for Medi-Cal. It was able to cover 100% of my surgery, and it legit saved my life.
So how long did the surgery take?
The operation?
Mm-hmm.
Like a day. I was in and out that same day. Had some people taking care of me at home. The recovery was pretty brutal. They make you wear this really tight compression vest, which is like the last thing you want on your body after top surgery, because you want to feel that freedom of like, I have a flat chest. Because they have these devices called binders that you can wear before top surgery. They're essentially like bras, but flat. They like compress your chest. They're really tight. So it sucked to like feel all that pain, you know, like it's a big deal, the surgery, and then to have to wear that compression vest and like not be able to see the result. You have to like wait for it.
How was it when you were finally able to see your chest? Did you break down crying?
You know, I thought I was going to break down crying, but I didn't.
No.
I've seen a lot of cute videos on the internet of people crying when they see their chest. I just felt so full of joy. It felt like too good to be true. And I felt like I saw myself, which sounds so cheesy, but I was just like, oh, there I am. Like, what a fucking relief.
Was that the final, like, oh, I'm finally 100% done after that surgery?
I mean, I was still going through, I'm still going through puberty. It's an interesting thing to go through 2 puberties in a lifetime. But yeah, it felt like a good step in the right direction, but then, my scar is still healing. It's been a couple years since I had the surgery now.
When did you have the surgery?
October, a year after I moved here. Whatever year that was, 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's talk about this. So another reason why I wanted to interview you is because, I was reading an article about, some stuff that you do. And let's talk about this. You're also a teacher, correct? You give like a masturbation class.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wear many hats. I'm primarily a coach, but I offer classes too.
So explain to me exactly what this class is.
Yeah. So it's funny. I've actually rebranded it as an energy healing just because my content keeps getting censored from Instagram and TikTok, and it's really hard to promote it. It just gets taken down. So it's an energy healing. The idea is to we just have so much trauma, collectively, that we're all experiencing in our individual levels. And for queer and trans folks, it's even more amplified. There's so much body shame and just, so I like to help people, get underneath the trauma that gets locked in the body, the stuff that you can't just talk out. You have to do some somatic practices. So we combine some EFT tapping. It's called emotional freedom technique. You just tap along the energy points along the meridians of the body, and it frees up energy. And then we do a guided meditation, and then I guide people through a masturbation. And the idea of the masturbation, it combines breath work, and it's synchronized to music too. So there's a rhythm that you get into, and it helps move the energy throughout the body. When you masturbate, your heart starts racing, and it helps just like clear out the system.
So this is men, women, everybody?
It's for people with vulvas. So like trans men, non-binary folks, cis women.
Oh, okay. And you guys are all what, like sitting around in a circle?
Eventually, I'd love to
get a physical. I'm trying to get a mental image of this.
This one was on Zoom. So I just facilitated my first one yesterday. It was amazing. It was fun, and people got so much out of it. It was really exciting. And I'm going to do a monthly on Zoom for now until I feel like I can trust. Zoom? I'm scared. I'm a little nervous to plan in-person events still. Like I need to, I'm
because
not sure
of the
about the
COVID situation?
Yeah. I've got a couple in-person events coming up, but I got 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Okay. And what made you like put on this event?
These are practices I do with myself, like I have experienced so much healing through just like exploring my own sexuality. Like, especially like when I came out as trans and I started the hormones, then I was like masturbating like 3 times a day. And I felt so much shame about it because I was conditioned to feel shame about my sexuality as a woman. And then it's like all of a sudden I have a fucking beard and I'm feeling all this body shame. And I'm like, wow, I need to unlearn this. Like it's normal for me to masturbate. So I've developed these practices where I use masturbation as like a tool almost. Like, yeah, like you can shift your energy by the way you approach it. And I wasn't seeing anyone else like doing this. So I feel like there's a big need in the community to like do some really deep healing on a somatic level that just wasn't there.
Okay. And your first ever event was yesterday?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. The topic was "You Are Worthy of Receiving," and it's going to be a different topic each month.
What happens at the end of the class? Everyone just wipes up and shit.
Yeah, so for this one, people turn their cameras off for the masturbation part. I had my camera on. I was guiding people. But yeah.
But you can hear them? You just can't see them?
No, I couldn't hear them.
Oh, you can hear them? Oh, okay.
No, I mean, if you want to have that kind of experience, come to my play party. I'm hosting one on August 7th.
Yeah, we'll get into that play shit.
Yeah, yeah. But this was more of like people need their privacy. Like, it is really out of people's comfort zone to come to an event like this. Because it's the people that don't feel easy about sexuality. That's the people that need this kind of stuff. It's like helping heal our relationships with ourselves so we can enjoy our bodies more. So that sense of privacy, I feel like, is actually really helpful. So then we do like a 20-minute guided masturbation and then like a 5-minute bio break, like clean up, finish yourself off if you want to, whatever you need. And then if people want to stick around, they can, and we just debrief. And that was like honestly my favorite part.
And were there like people all from just the Bay Area, or it's like?
It was a big crowd. There was people from all over the U.S. there. There was just 11 people that came, but it was a lot of trans guys, a lot of cis women. I felt good about it was a pretty diverse crowd.
You say cis woman. What is a cis woman?
Cisgender people are people who identify with the sex they were assigned at birth. So if you're not trans, you're cis.
Okay.
It's CIS.
Do you think it's getting too overboard with the pronouns and all that stuff nowadays? Like the he, me, she, her, all that stuff?
I love it.
Okay. So you don't think it's like overkill?
No.
Okay.
No, it's cool. What I love about pronouns is that like you're saying like if I ask you your pronouns, I'm basically not making any assumptions about how you identify. It's like, yeah, when people used to misgender me all the time, it would be so painful. Like I was seriously like on the brink of like, I was barely alive, you know, I was numbing out most of the day. And so if people could just ask me first, like, how do you like to be called? It could avoid so much pain.
But do you, like when people misgender you or whatever, I mean, do you get mad when they do that, or do you just say like, oh, I mean, how would they? Like if I was walking down the street and me and you and we just randomly started talking, I would obviously think you're just a guy.
Yeah.
But would you get mad at that and be like, because a lot of people would get mad and be like, oh no, I'm not, blah blah. I'm like, but how would an average person know that? You know?
Right. There's no way of knowing. That's why you got to ask. Yeah.
But who's going to just randomly ask, oh, are you trans? No one's going to randomly ask you that if they don't know you.
Yeah. Well, the idea with asking pronouns is not asking if you're trans. It's just like, it's detaching gender from bodies. It's like saying, hey, what feels good to you? You know? I used to get pretty mad, but I wasn't like angry at people. It was more of just like my heart felt broken that I was living in such like a violent system where like gender was shoved into 2 binary boxes. It's very unrealistic.
Okay. What do you feel about, there's this big thing in the Olympics, right? I don't know if you follow sports, but about trans, people competing, like trans men who transition to be women competing against other women. And a lot of athletes feel, and a lot of people feel that, they shouldn't be able to compete against regular women, you know, because they have an advantage because they still have that male, like, I don't know what you call it. I mean, I guess testosterone or whatever.
Well, I mean, if they're taking estrogen, then their testosterone levels are not going to be male testosterone levels. But
how do you, what's your view on that? Yeah. Do you think it's fair for trans men who transition to be women to compete against other women?
Is it fair for trans women to compete against cis women? That's complicated. I feel like maybe I'm more qualified to talk about just the policing that happens in general. Like, I can't remember the name of this athlete, but there is a woman, I don't even remember what country she's from, but see, I don't follow sports. Yeah. That's the thing. I just get like wind of this very like secondhand. So, I know there are cisgender women who are like being disqualified from competing in the Olympics because they have higher testosterone levels. But the thing is like, yeah, sex is not binary. sex is actually a spectrum. It's made up of all these different components. Like hormones is just one of the components. And it's completely natural for human beings to have a spectrum of like sexual characteristics, from gonads to chromosomes to hormones. So I think it's wrong that we're like policing people. It feels the same way that, like, you know how like if you go to the grocery store and all the produce, like every potato is like perfectly round and every apple is perfectly round, but that's not realistic of what nature produces. There's so much food waste because it doesn't look perfectly polished. We just like throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
The same shit happens with gender policing and sex policing. Like, yeah, it's complicated.
So you, do you think they should compete or no?
Yeah, I think they should.
Okay. All right. So tell me about these play parties. What is this? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So it's a different vibe depending on who organizes it. What's the space? What's the theme? The one that I'm hosting with a friend of mine, it's a queer kinky play party. So that's the vibe. It's just a space.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, tell me what exactly is a play party.
Yeah. There's a group local that has this this expression of like high possibility, low expectations. I really love that framework because it's not like, I think when you hear the words orgy or play party, you imagine like chaos or like a bunch of like just really intense stuff happening. But my approach to play parties is like, there are spaces where there is no shame. Like you just see a bunch of naked bodies. Especially for me to be in a queer and trans space and just see like all these different varieties of naked bodies. It makes me feel so normal in my body. I'm like, look, none of our bodies look the same. That makes me normal. Like, and then just seeing people have sex, like it really takes the stigma out of sex. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's just like a thing you do, just like eating. Like it's no big deal. So they're really fun spaces to be in. Usually the first time you go, like my first time, I was scared shitless. I was really overwhelmed just watching the first time. But, you know, I've been to so many at this point over the years. And each time I go, I feel a little bit more free.
The first time you ever went to a play party, how did you find out about it?
Oh my God. It was an accident. It was my first week in the Bay Area. And I was like, I'm going to go make some friends. So I went to this meetup for trans female to male people. And we met up at this coffee shop, Wicked Grounds in SF, which is like a kink friendly coffee shop. And they were all talking about, yeah, we're going to go to this play party afterwards. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's hang out, like parties.
So you thought it was like some techno shit, huh? Like a rave?
I had no idea. Yeah, I thought we were just going to someone's house or something.
Okay.
And so I was biking, and so I met them all there, and I get there, and my jaw just like dropped. There's all these naked people in there, and I was like, where the fuck am I?
Was it like a venue or like somebody's house?
It was a venue. It was at a place called Eros, which is, I think, like a bathhouse, for gay men.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you walk in.
Oh my God. Yeah.
There's a bunch of naked people just on the floor.
Just hanging out. No, they weren't. So at the in the entrance, like that's where all the snacks and socializing were. It was very low key, but people were like, you know, just like naked in conversation, snacking on some grapes, like meeting people, you know. But then you go upstairs, and that's where like the playing happens. But even just being in that space, like I think I walked around in 3 circles before I was like, should I stay or should I go? And I decided to stay.
Did you have to get naked?
No.
Okay. So you can keep your clothes on.
Yeah, I mean, you're a little out of place, I think, if you're keeping your clothes on. But for me, I took off most of my clothes, but I kept on my binder and my boxers, which felt like it was covering so much of my body anyway.
Okay. So the first time you went, you didn't participate. You were just spectating. Okay.
No, and this cute guy asked to make out with me, and I was like, no, thank you.
And so after that, did you go to when was the next time you went? Was it at the same place or a different part?
No, a different one. So I went to one that was on the East Bay. Like I've lived in Oakland Oakland and Berkeley is where I've lived since I've been here. So I went to one that was local to me in Oakland that was called QTs, like Q for queer and T for trans. And that was like a much more welcoming experience for me because we had like an opening circle. It felt like the space was held and I could really like settle in.
Mm-hmm. Did you participate at that time?
Yeah, except for I was dating someone monogamously at the time. So we just played, like, it was a big deal for me to have sex with my partner in front of a bunch of people. And even some people came up to me as we were like putting on our shoes and leaving, and they were like, I really enjoyed your scene. And I was like, excuse me?
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a lot at the time. But now, like, I'm used to those comments and I'm like, oh, thank you.
Do you prefer having sex with men or women? I mean, which one do you enjoy the most?
That's a great question. You know, it's like, it's hard to dissect it from like, it's hard for me to dissect, like to separate the genitals from the personality. So like, I think I mostly prefer to play with women. I know my way around a vulva. You know, I can like really please somebody. It's just so fun. And there's like this emotional connection, or there's just this sense of like the way that women are socially conditioned. They're like so focused on the other person, you know? So like, I feel like that's a big component of like how much I enjoy sex is like, how much is the person focused on me? I've had not the best, I've had like okay sex with men, to be honest with you. Like, yeah, penises are fun or whatever, but it's hard for me to like, feel that sense of like, oh, you really care about me orgasming too, you know, not to generalize all men, but it's just way easier for me to like scout out a woman and be like, I know we're going to have a good time together. It's not just going to be you focused on yourself.
So, you know, you mostly date women?
Yeah. Yeah. And other trans folks. I love hooking up with trans folks. Actually, yeah. Like trans women or trans men or trans non-binary, like those are also really fun play dates for me.
Why do you think that is?
There's less assumptions about how the interaction's gonna go. There's no script laid out for like for example, how would you identify sex if I asked you what is sex to you?
I mean, this might sound like a caveman answer, but sex to me is penetration. Right. Like if I get head, that's not sex to me. Like if I like finger someone, that's not sex to me. But if I penetrate you, that's sex.
Yeah.
So that's how I identify sex. Now some people say, oh, oral sex is actual sex and all that shit, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's just my personal belief.
Yeah. That's a very common like cultural narrative, and a lot of people believe that. But
I don't knock anyone else's belief. You understand what I'm saying? If you believe differently, that's fine. I accept your shit too. You know? Yeah,
it's sexuality is like to each their own. You know, like every person I date or play with, I ask them, I'm like, what do you consider sex? Because it's literally like a different answer from everyone. And for me, sex is a very wide definition. It's like oral. It could be, you know, like really anything beyond kissing. Like even if I'm like groping your boobs, I'm like, wow, we just had sex.
Damn. Well, if that was the case, I'd have had sex with thousands of women.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So what I like about hooking up with trans folks is that like usually we've had this experience where we've had to like question ourselves, like how do we define sex? And so there's no script laid out. Like everything is to be negotiated. And then it's really fun. It's more creative, more playful, I think.
Do you think you guys have good representation when it comes to like society, when it comes to like laws and healthcare and shit like that?
not at all. I mean, we're making progress for sure, but I mean, look at where we came from. Like, we got a long way to go.
What do you think is the most challenging thing when it comes to your community that you guys need to accomplish?
I mean, honestly, the biggest threat to our community is like just the violence that happens against trans women, especially trans women of color. Like my experience as a white trans man is completely different from the experience of a black trans woman, you know? So I feel very safe when I walk out into the world, because all of a sudden I've actually like gained privilege somehow. I'm like, whoa, this is weird. I didn't ask for this. But so many people still can barely just like leave their house without feeling safe, you know? Like that's a basic human right, is just to exist. But some people can't do that in peace.
When you were growing up to how you are now, do you like when you were growing up in society, and society saw you as like a girl, and now society, I mean, you're trans, but I'm just talking about people who don't even know you, who just look at you, they see you as a guy, right?
Yeah.
Do you think like shit was different now? Like society sees me as a white man now. I feel like I get these advantages. Do you feel like that's different than when you were seen as a woman?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It shows up in like little tiny ways for me, because it's not so explicit. Like I don't work at a corporation, you know, like I work for myself. So like, it's not like I'm getting like a better pay raise at work or something like that. It's more like I went into a dispensary one time with my partner, who was like a woman of color, and the guy attending us like wasn't even making eye contact with her, and was talking to me, and I was like, bruh, like I'm not even buying anything, like she's buying stuff. So that was trippy. Like, yeah. And then something as simple as like, I used to ride a skateboard, a longboard, as a woman, you know, and I would get so many microaggressions about that. So much like comments from men always on the streets of like, oh, do you know how to ride that thing? As I'm riding it. And I'm like, bruh, like it's just so annoying and belittling. And then when I was skateboarding down the street as a man, I had this guy stop me on the street and be like, hey, I've been thinking about buying a skateboard. Could you give me some tips or something? And I told him, like, I just researched this on the internet and bought it, and I forgot everything. Like, I don't know. I just made the best decision for me. Like, I don't have any tips for you. And he was like so insistent. He's like, no, but you just got to like, give me something. And I'm like, wow, you're like begging for my opinion right now. Whereas before people were like, I could be competent in doing a thing and they would still question my competence. You know?
Okay. Do you think, well, I asked, do you like that?
No, it doesn't feel, I mean, I don't like either of them. I just want to be treated like a person, you know, but like people make these assumptions. I can't help it. They either assume you're stupid or they assume you're smart. And now I'm being assumed to be smart. But regardless, like it feels icky, because I'm like, ooh, I've been on the other end of that, and I'm not trying to be on the top of it either, you know, because it's oppression, you know, and I'm not trying to play that game.
Is there any point in time that you regretted doing what you did?
No,
No,
never. Not a single moment. No, actually, I've experienced so much gender euphoria these days that like I spend a lot of time in front of the mirror, just looking myself into the eyes and being like, I can't believe this is our life. Like, I can't believe life feels so good. And I just love the way I look. I love who I am. I'm so grateful to be alive. I can't believe I was like so suicidal in the past, because I'm just so happy to be alive.
Has dating become more easier for you ever since you transitioned?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It's hard to say, because like I live in a bubble in the Bay, you know, like there's such a big queer trans culture here that dating feels easy to me. Yeah. The only thing, like, I think if I were staying in St. Louis, Missouri, like it might feel harder for sure. But here, like, I date other queer and trans folks, so it's chill. But the only thing is I do feel fetishized, like actually quite often. And sometimes it's like explicit where they're like, you know, especially with like gay men, like that whole culture, like the gay male culture is so different from lesbian culture. But even from my loved ones, like people I deeply care about and who I know who deeply care about me, like I still feel fetishized by them. And it's like, they're not even trying, but trans people have been so erased from the narrative that people just get anxiety about it, you know, like, for example, for someone to tell me like, I'm nervous to have sex with you after we're like really vibing and stuff. And we're not even about to have sex. They just like saying this to share it with me. It does not feel good for me to hear that. Cause I'm like, if I were a cis dude, you wouldn't be nervous to have sex with me. But at the end of the day, like for me, sex is about connection. And I don't need to be in love with someone to have sex. I just need to feel some sort of connection. Cause really you're just playing together. And like, sex is an intuitive experience. And if you're connected, you don't need an instruction manual, you know, like you just feel like, oh, this person's really into this. Like they're giving you some kind of feedback. Like you're just sucked into the moment and it all just unfolds organically. And that's what makes sex so magical. Like you can't be anywhere else but the present moment because you're just so immersed in the senses. And then when someone takes me out of that and they're like reminding me how I'm othered or different, I feel fetishized. I feel like Forrest disappears, or like me as a personality, as a person disappears. And then it's like they just slap this label on me and they're like, you're trans and now we're different and now it's going to be weird.
Are these gay men saying this?
No, I don't date too many gay men at this moment. This happens in like my like partnered, I'm polyamorous, so I'm dating a few people. But it happens in multiple relationships.
How many people are you dating?
Right now I'm dating 2 people. Yeah, I'm sad.
Sounds
a recent
very tiresome.
Yeah. No, I mean, so the thing, yeah, it's relationships are relationships, you know, like I don't think it's any more tiring to like be polyamorous than it is to be monogamous. It's just a level of like being in relationship with people, you know? And with monogamy, like, I think it's really common to be super partnered up and you're spending like all your time together. But when my style of polyamory, it's like, there's no hierarchy there. It's just like, I'll hang out with you one day of the week. I'll hang out with them one day of the week. And I'm not spending all my time with them. It feels very balanced. And like the time that we do spend together is like true quality time. So it's not, yeah, it's just a different format of doing relationships. But I think if you are bad at communicating, any relationship feels exhausting. And I happen to be really good at communicating. So it's important for me to date people who are also good at communicating. And then I don't feel exhausted.
Okay. Do you ever have plans to go back to St. Louis?
No.
No?
No. So many people from back home ask me like, when are you going to come visit? And I'm just like, I'm not ready. I've experienced too much pain there. And I feel like I ran away in a lot of ways and just kind of didn't look back. I like changed my name, changed my gender, changed my career. Like I'm just like a different person. And I would like to visit eventually, but it's too raw for me still. I think I would like just burst into tears, you know?
When did you start doing life coaching?
I had been working with a life coach in St. Louis, which is how I got into it. That's how I even came out as trans. It's the first opportunity I really had to like develop a relationship with myself was through coaching. So when I moved out here, I immediately, like within a month, I like started a year-long training program. So at this point, it's been 3.5, 4 years that I've been involved in coaching work.
Do you work with like mostly trans people?
I work with some trans people. I love working with trans people. It's so special.
Like teens and shit, like coaching them like how to come out and shit? Or?
I haven't worked with any teens. I would love to do some of that. That sounds great. But I mostly work with women, like queer women seems to be the vibe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's your passion?
Yeah. Yeah, I like helping people feel like they can enjoy their bodies and their relationships more. Because I think a lot of us aren't taught those skills when we're little. Like we have so much shame we have to like unlearn. So what I help people do is I help them feel secure in themselves so they can feel secure in their relationships and they can have really enjoyable sex.
So what is one thing that you wish when you were growing up that you would have done differently?
Wow, what a question. Well, for sure, I wish I could have like come out earlier or been just less in hiding about all the aspects of my life, not just the queer trans parts, but just I was so like a shell, you know, I was so buried away. And then part of me is like, well, I don't know if I was actually safe to express like that. Like I would have like been in danger. So it's hard to know. But if I could, I would love to have like been just more unapologetically myself.
Okay. Well, tell the people where they can like find you if they have any questions, if they want to reach out to you. Give them your social media handles if you want, and where they can find us. Play party. Do you accept how does one, if they want to go to your play parties, how does one do that? You know what I'm saying? Tell them all that information.
Yeah. So if you want to check out my work, you know, I host play parties, cuddle puddles, energy healings. There's a lot. You can go to my website, thehumanconditioncoaching.com. My Instagram handle is sexpositivehealing, separated by periods. And I've got a class coming up called Empowered Sexuality. August 3rd, it's starting. So, if you want to feel more secure in your sexuality and just enjoy your body, enjoy your sex more, sign up for this class. It's 8 weeks and it's online, so anyone can sign up for it.
And when you say anyone, like anyone
with a vulva. Yeah. It's directed towards people that share like similar social conditioning as myself.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was another episode of Everyday Celebrity Podcast. I want to thank Forrest for joining me and talking about your life. Very respected that you came on here and shared some stuff that was that some people would never share. Bravery. That's what I think of when I listen to this episode. And please follow on Instagram. And if you are a trans person, or if you are a teenager, and if you listen to this, and if you want somebody to talk to, this is the person I think you should contact, because you always want to talk to people who went through the same shit that you're going through. You can't talk to a marriage counselor who never been married. You understand what I'm saying? That's basically what I'm trying to say. But thank you, Forrest, for coming on. Any last words?
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Like I said, like I'm an open book, and I'm really happy to like use whatever platform I can just to help people like feel less afraid of trans people. Like we're just regular people, you know?
Yeah. Well, this is Everyday Celebrity Podcast, and we are out. You.